Okay, just checking we're running because I don't trust this thing. It doesn't give me a sign. It's a good camera, but it doesn't tell me what's going on. Right, so here we are. This is I'm Sam. This is the Really Love Guitars Shed Workshop, grandly named, and I'm bashing around with this very large, ungainly guitar, which is going to have an accident if I'm not careful. So what have we got? Well, we have a Rally Explorer, and this is as you can see, it's one of those heavy duty, heavy rock, heavy metal style guitars. Of course anybody can play it. You don't have to play that style, and it's a really interesting shaped guitar. Of course it has this great big thing counterbalancing the neck, but also sticking out way back here. And I've already in the house, I've already turned around and bashed things because you just got to get used to this thing. Now, beautifully out of tune. Oh yeah, what I did was okay, so I bought this on eBay like most of my guitars, and it arrived and it's in pretty good condition actually. It's got a tiny little chip here and there which I can cover up. And it just has a bit of surface scratching which isn't great, but it's kind of, some of it's from pick wear, and some of it's somebody's done the usual thing of trying to take a cloth and polish something, and in fact what they've done is they've added more scratches. But so this thing came in that pretty good condition, and the reason I bought it of course is because it's a Rally, and those of you who've seen some of my videos before will know that my top guitar in my whole lot of guitars, which I have to say don't comprise very expensive ones. I like the budget classics really, but especially when they're set up, they're as good as anything in my opinion. But so Rally has definitely become one of my very favourite brands, and it's very little known. It's a sort of turn of the century-ish, 2000s-ish, I think. I'm not even sure of that. There's so little information, but it's a Korean brand made in China, and they make a whole range of shapes, you name it. But their Les Paul, so far I've had their Les Paul copies, the GL300s, which have been superb. I've had another heavy metal thin liney sort of semi-acoustic thing, and I've had a gold top as well, and then this one. So you know, when I can get hold of a Rally, I'll get hold of a Rally because the construction is great, they play beautifully well, and so far they have, and the pickups in my experience have been really superb. Now I haven't got an amp out here, so I can't really demonstrate this one right now, and not only that, the strings are horribly dead. So what I'm going to do is a full setup and a cleanup on this thing. As you can see, it's a set neck, so I'm going to do all the work on it in one piece. Do some polishing as well to bring it up as nicely as we can into a clean condition. Pretty much everything else is intact, and it should buff up very well. I lowered the action on here the other day, pretty much after I got it to something ridiculously low, but you can hear doesn't even play at the very low actions. That is because, first of all, the chosen action is unfeasibly small, so it's not realistic. It's sub ½ millimeter. So I'll do the normal stuff. God knows how it will fit on the bench, but let's sort of get stuck into it. What I don't have right now, I've been stood up by my strings supplier, which is really annoying, and it's one of those things you want to. I kind of like to buy stuff off fellow eBayers. I think, you know, supporting small businesses doing their thing is a nice thing to do. And let me just make sure this is attached safely. Make sure everything's right. I'll turn it around I'm doing some refretting in the background as well. So okay, now I'm just conscious that I'm not getting entirely accurate with my camera angles because I'm so used to having the wraparound setting that I have to be a little bit more precise when I'm pointing at things with this narrower field of vision. yeah, so I ordered a set of strings, 3 sets of 9s and 3 sets of 10s, and they haven't arrived, and they may have gone missing or something. But the annoying thing is, of course, when you contact the eBay seller, they quite understandably they say, okay, well, give it to Friday, and if they haven't turned up, I'll send you some more, because the eBay seller definitely wants to keep you happy, but at the same time they can't really afford to send you out another set just like that. They've obviously got to kind of keep their cash flow intact and whatever. So I couldn't really wait till, well, if I got to Friday and they hadn't turned up, then I tell the seller, and the seller then kindly sends me some out on the Saturday, possibly. In which case I might get it Monday or Tuesday. And the reality is I would have been another week without any strings. So what I did is I went to Amazon and just ordered a bunch on Prime delivery, which I'm lucky enough to have, and I make use of it. So the dopey thing is, it's pretty much the same price as buying them from an eBay seller, and I get them the next day instead of waiting maybe a week. So unless it's very hard to imagine how an eBay seller can compete with that. Still, I will go back to buying them from the eBay seller, providing this lot turn up and it's all resolved. Okay, so the process of what am I doing with this? Well, I'm going to use these horrible dead strings to just do the fret leveling part of the operation, and this definitely needs some fret leveling. I'm not going to take I'm not going to flatten the neck out, take the strings off, flatten the neck out and test the fret level that way. I'm going to know that there is uneven frets simply because it's not playing. Now this is the hard bit. God, getting over the top of this thing. I'm ashamed to say that after having taken yet another yet another query about Sam, why don't you use a slotted ruler to check your frets are your neck is straight, and so I went and bought one because I just thought I can't keep arguing why I don't have one. Now, having said that, I will now argue why I don't use one. And the reason I don't use one is precisely because I don't ever level the frets with the neck straight anymore. Now, if I did, that would obviously make getting the neck level an important consideration. And I have to confess that, as you know, before starting to level the frets with the neck in playing configuration with a curve in it, and before that I used to level it by eye, and sometimes I would even check it with the ruler I've just moved. So at a push you might have seen me go something like, yeah, that's straight, and carried on. So now what I've done is I've conceded defeat, and I have bought the famous slotted ruler, and obviously I've got the wrong side there. It's a Gibson scale, so there we are, there is the ruler, and it leaps over the frets, and it's showing me that if I get down on my knees, I should have a white surface behind here. It's much better, or a bright light, but I can see there's a considerable curve in that neck, which is probably more than we'd want. But the issue for me is that any more accurate than just running something across the top of the frets? I know they're not exactly the same, they don't equal the same as the wood, they're not, the frets may be way out and uneven, in which case you're getting a false reading. But if you look at a set of frets and you see that they are pretty consistent, they're not sticking out any major amount. Just the question for me is, does the amount that an individual fret or two may be high, will that throw off the overall reading of this? Well, I guess those are in the know say yes it does, hence the slotted ruler thing, which I'll probably only rarely use because I'm not in the business of flattening the neck. Anyway, so I've set the action here at 1.5 just on the horrible, listen to that sound, onto the bass E or the low E, and about 1 on the high E. Now the next part of my equation is to have a look at the neck relief, and I've got my capo sitting here. It's one that Thomas actually found in his bedroom. It resurfaced, but it's kind of handy because I can now use it for checking the relief. And I check the relief by capoing the first fret, holding down the last fret, and looking at the amount of gap. And that is probably more than I'd want. And people go, how do you know it's more than you want? And I go, well, do you know what? When you've eyeballed as many first fret actions as I have, you get at least able to guess roughly. And for example, put myself on the line, so we say 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. At the 8th fret, I would say that is close to a millimetre. Okay, now let's test and see if I'm completely right or wrong. Let's get a millimetre going. So how do we say 5, 6, 7, 8? It's going to be hard to do this. Okay, it's not as much as that. Okay, so it is 5, 6, 7, 8. Looking sideways. Okay, so it's about 0.8 of a millimetre. That's way too high. So we're going to need to take the trusswood cover off. I think you can play a guitar with no relief at all. It does work, but there is particularly if you have a low action, there is a high likelihood of your strings hitting the frets while you're playing them, because without any relief there's no space for the strings to kind of rotate at their midpoint or to oscillate at their midpoint widely. So you do want some relief. Some people, beyond a certain point, it's kind of feel, and some people like a little bit more than others. And if you have too much relief, it seems to mess things up again. And actually what can happen is that your strings can choke out near the top of the fretboard as the kind of the fingerboard comes round almost to meet up. It's so curved that it comes round to meet up the string as it's on its way to the saddle. Okay, so knock that off. We'll get our keys, and we're going to go clockwise to remove some relief. I'll find the right one. I think it was more likely to be one of these. A little bit more difficult to do this with the strings in place as ever, because you've got to sort of get it to, first of all you've got to find if it's the right size one, and then you've got to get it to fit in. I think that may be one size too big. Yeah, and then you don't get much turning room. Okay, and this, yeah, okay, that's the right size key. Now either try and get it in one more click around this side. Yep. Okay, so I'm tightening up a bit, and then I've got to leave myself room to get out. So that's a clockwise turn, which is going to it's going to bend the rod, and it's going to bend the rod so that it counteracts the curvature on the neck caused by the strings. So I don't need to necessarily put the capo back on, but I'm just going to hold it and look and see if that's improved. Yeah, well, it has a little bit. And it might, I don't want to overdo it because it might well take a little while to adjust, so I'll stop at that point. I'll put the capo back on so I can double check it shortly. Yeah, it's taken it down quite a lot, and I would say still quite a bit, but it's less than it was. Probably about 0.4. So a little bit more bending the strings out of the way as we can. Hang on, let's have a look down here. So there's a simple way of doing this. Probably would be, I don't want to take the strings off because I want the pull of the strings on there, but getting a rattly key into the hole. Right. That's kind of weird because that appears to have slackened off. I don't know if this is a two-way truss rod on these things. To be honest, I've not seen that on a rally. I could be wrong, in which case we'd expect it to possibly go slack in the middle and then change direction. It's taken it down now to a very small amount of relief, and that possibly over time might even reduce, but let's leave it there for a minute. Let's see what we get. Okay, so the next part of my equation is to make sure that the first fret action is good, and actually, like all rallies, I have to say that I've come across, it's great. It looks really, really impressive from here. In fact, it's lower in some cases than I might even have gone for myself. So what's spoiling this guitar at the moment is uneven frets and a very, very crap old strings that don't sound like anything. So let's have a think what we've got going on here. I reckon we're as low as 0.1 over the side. Yeah, well, we are low. Okay, so the G is 0.2, just over 0.25, possibly 0.2. So, yeah, so if I'm going to make them all consistent with this particular nut, wow, that's down to about 0.1. That's a very, 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 very tiny gap. 0.1. Let's try 0.15. I'm not sure I'd want to cut them all to 1.5. Let's try it and see. Wow, that's 0.1. So the low E is set at capo style height. The kind of first fret action that you would get if you were playing with a capo on, which is quite remarkable. Yeah, and it's just a little bit too low, and that's partly because there's very little relief in the neck. So if we bend it and get some more relief out of the neck, cleans up a bit. So I'm not happy with that. So it could be, I think it's a replacement nut time, which isn't the end of the world because a guitar like this deserves a slightly better nut than a plastic one anyway. It slows everything down a bit. It also means I'm going to slack off these, which I have no idea whether or not these strings will survive much more moving around. Okay, so this is a bit of a thin one, so we're looking for a particular sized nut for this guitar. This is a graphite one, which probably could fit. Imagination, or all the slots the same on this. That is bizarre. How can you have a nut with? No, they are slightly different. So it could be that one. It's another graphite one here, but that's quite low. I don't think that's even tall enough. Probably not. Yeah, I don't want to start repairing this one, so I think the bottom line is this is coming off because it's already too low. I'm all for low first fret actions, but 0.1 is just, it's asking for trouble. It means that you can't, it does restrict how hard you can play the string because it's going to start hitting frets. Okay. So we'll just take, I'm going to use Chris Barker's little tool here. It sort of sits up there. It's quite firmly attached. And off it comes. And that's actually a nice clean removal. And since it's but is it plastic? It's bone actually. No, it is plastic. It's got little holes in it, but it's very brittle plastic. Now, just before I do anything, there's a tiny bit of the plastic. It's kind of a vitreously sort of stuff, and it's just snapped off and left behind on there. So I just want to remove that before I go any further. And I suppose you can get in kind of close and cozy here. So I'm just going to knocking off those little bits of plastic so that the next nut will sit on nice and firm. Okay, so that's a nice nut, but it's too low. It's got a nice colour. Not a good one. This one's, yeah, they're all going to be too low unless I custom make one. There seems to be doing more and more of that. That's plastic. Now this is sort of graphite plastic, but I don't think this is. Either way, it's too low. So we could be left with no option but to create another custom one. I do have rather a lot of these things. I've got one that I was making for another one, and if that would work quite nicely on this. Bit of work to take the slots right down, but that's the kind of thing I have to do, is make another one from scratch, which is going to take me offline for a while. Either that, or I shim one of these. Sorry about the noise. I shim one of these things. I mean, you know, I could at the push I could reuse this one and shim it, but it's going to need. It's brittle enough to probably cut in the right sort of way to make the slots work okay. But if I were to shim it like this, I need to smooth off the surface again because it's picked up some glue. Oops. Let's just put this flat a minute. Is all the glue off? Is it all off? Nearly. There's a little bit sticking out. Shimming's okay, but then we end up usually with a little gap that also needs filling, so it's a bit of a pain, but it may be less of a pain than completely building a custom nut from scratch. Okay, so if we were shimming like that, then we get back quite a bit of height, which should be fine. But then we do have a filling issue at the end of the job, and that's a bone dust kind of deal, which is doable, but it doesn't come out the same kind of white colour. But that's okay, it plays well. So this is quite a chunky shim, and it's probably a third of a millimetre, so it's giving ourselves back a fair bit. The alternative is to get a slightly wider one, which that's now too wide. Then we could make a bit more extra space to fill. I don't want copper sticking out the end particularly. It's really difficult to cut this in a straight line when it's this small. That's not bad. Take the plastic off. I always take the plastic off. Okay, so this is a single piece of copper, and it's more solid, so it'll kind of form a nice solid plate for this to sit on. and then there's a sort of a fairly big gap either side for me to fill with bone, and that's a good lift, so it gives us plenty of room. So if I just move this out of the way and get some glue, give me Gorilla Glue. It's all nice and clean, the nut slot, so that's good. Makes a chain. So in we go. Just drop it in there. Press this down just the right width, which is good. And then, yeah, this is it's not bone, but it's I think it's a graphite. It's very. I don't think it's plastic. Some sort of possibly a graphite. I thought graphite was supposed to be black, but this is an interesting substance, whatever it is. It should cut quite nicely. It's not a problem. I just hate soft plastic more than anything. It's my nemesis. Okay, so just lining it up. I mean, I don't mind cutting a new nut when I have to, and sometimes I have to, like earlier on today, but it is a lot of time, and I prefer to avoid it if I can help it. Okay, so I'm just going to tighten these things up and hope they last long enough and don't pull the thing off to one side. That will help it to set. God, these strings are utterly minging. Don't have anything to tune by. Not that. I suppose my tuner on here might just do. Okay, so that's a bit of a detour, but there's no point starting out with something that's too low. I'm going to hope that that's right. That's the best I can hope for without a tone. Okay, so while that is setting under the force of the strings pressing down on it, as I say, I can see a fair gap either side, and I can pretty much just get on with that now if I want. Just making sure this thing stands up. I get my, sorry, it's so noisy, secret stash of bone dust is kept for such a eventuality. And a blade, which of course I can't find. So to do this, I'd probably want to mask off the edges of this so that I want to pack in as much super glue, no, not super glue, bone dust as possible, but I don't want glue getting anywhere. And my experience has been that when you do repairs with super glue, the super glue has a habit or a tendency that wants to run underneath the masking tape. It's like it's I don't know what they call it, capillary action, and as soon as it gets anywhere near the tape it goes, right, I'm getting sucked under there, and that's final. So I somewhere have a new blade in my rather untidy world. And here is my new blade. Sorry if this is a bit of a dreary thing. I'm going to say it's a detour that I didn't necessarily expect to be on. So I'm just going to fold that down. I really want to keep the masking tape pressed down very firmly so that it's there's no space underneath it, really. That's the main thing. And then I can put my super glue on there without too much fear of it going anywhere else, and move things off to one side. Oh, I'm sorry if the camera view is not very good either. Right, so while I'm at this, I'm going to put some tape up the inside of here, just as an attempt to stop it going anywhere. Again, this is a bit difficult because it's sort of difficult to get in there to press this down, but I'll do my best. Just in case it tries to get caught under there. Oops, that's okay if it goes inside there, I don't mind, it's just this bit I care about. Okay, and then a bit for the other side. I don't know what the shape of this thing is going to mean right now. Can it stay there? No. God, this is an impossible shape to work with. Will that stay there? If I'm lucky. Just be ready to catch it when it goes. So this super glue and bone dust thing is, you may have seen it done before, you may have used it yourself, but for those who haven't, it's a very useful fixing trick for when you have a slot in the nut that's been cut too low. And technically I could have used it in this case to build up these slots, which are quite a bit too low, but I think rather than build up with super glue on this guitar, because actually I would have been building up several of those slots with super glue and bone dust, so I'd rather not do that. I'd rather lift the whole lot up and cut proper nice slots down to the right height than fixing individual ones, because when you're fixing individual ones you're filling the slot with super glue, and then you're going to cut the cement that you've made, the bone dust and super glue mixture. It hardens, and then you're going to cut that down to the correct height, and it actually cuts differently from bone, even though it's a mixture of bone and super glue. It doesn't behave like bone when you're cutting, and as a result it's not quite a smoother substance. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do the same on both sides in a minute, but I'm going to start by just gently feeding my bone dust, if you can see this, into the slot. Now I'm hoping it doesn't all just disappear down the middle by the truss rod. It shouldn't do. It should sort of stack up by the copper piece, and I think I can see it starting to build up. Now the guitar's going to fall off. I'll just rest it on its neck. It's actually going to be safer. It's not going anywhere. It's putting it in the that thing. That was the problem. The neck hold. Right. So with my bone dust, I'll chuck some more on there, and then just gently sort of push its way into the gap until we reach the surface, and then what I can do is sort of just wipe away the excess and worry about that later. Now I get my ultra runny, that means low viscosity super glue, and this container is always screwing up, so it never works properly, so I always have to test it on something elsewhere and thankfully it's still flowing, which I'm amazed at. I'm going to get over here, and with a hand to steady it, I'm going to get me a mist all together. There we go, into the slot there. Now that some of that will have tried to go underneath, I'm pretty sure, but we can worry about that afterwards. Now this, believe it or not, will have made a nice cement in that gap, but it sort of sinks in a bit while you're doing this. So I'm going to drop a bit more on there, flatten it out, push it away. We can file this down, you see, so we can, it doesn't matter if our glued cement sticks up. Proud of the whole thing. There we go. Cover this, get it out of the way, move this, move that. Okay, so that's our one side done for the time being. If any super glue has run off, ooh, there goes some dust. If super glue has run off to the side, we will come back and get the debonder out. Sorry, this has suddenly become higher than I expected. Okay, so the same principle here. I'm just going to make sure the guitar's stable, and then I'm going to pile up some bone dust on here and coax it into the hole. For those of you who may have ever used drugs recreationally, and I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that you have, but if you have, you may be experiencing some strange sensations right now while I'm doing this. I think in the psychotherapeutical community they call it euphoric recall. Go and look it up. Okay, so there's a nice pile of bone dust in there. Gonna get my guiding finger out, get myself in position before I start tipping, and there we go, 2 blobs of that. And similarly, gonna chuck a little bit more on top. That's a pretty neat little join going on there. Actually, that's just going to soak up the excess, which is cool. Right, so I'm moving these little bits out of the way for a moment, and now I'm going to make it my business to blow dust out of the way, remove the masking tape, and get ready to clean up anything that's spilled. And actually, it doesn't appear yet, I could be wrong, it doesn't appear to have spilled or wicked its way underneath the masking tape yet. Could be wrong, there's still room, still time. Okay, so a bit of a paper hangover there, but that's not bad. I think you'll agree that's not a bad little fill, and before too long I'm going to when I just gently sand that down, I might not even have to do that, but what I will do is I'll put a little bit of lacquer over the top of that to blend it in, because the binding of this guitar has lacquer all the way down it, and it's a bit weird to arrive at this nut. And that's why I'm wondering if this nut is also a replacement anyway, because it doesn't have any lacquer going over the join of the nut, which is unusual for a guitar. If it was an original nut, you'd expect it to have lacquer over the joint. I'm just trying to get this stuff. I've made a bit of a masking tape. I have a feeling the masking tape I'm using here is not the low tack one, which is a bit of a pain. I don't really need to do anything with that right now. I'll take care of that when the strings are off. But yeah, I think I've mixed up and used one of the wrong masking tapes, in which case I'm going to throw this away. Right now, I'm just going to clean off the fingerboard and any masking tape glue either side. But that's looking pretty good as a repair. In fact, it's the tidiest little shim filler that I've ever done. That is going in the bin because it's sticky masking tape. It's not low tack. Okay, so yeah, that's a pleasing little repair. I'll take the paper off later on, so that isn't a problem. But right now, yeah, I've got the shims very tidy. I wish you could, hope you could see that. A very tidy little filled shim, and it will do the job nicely. And we've got a fair bit of downward adjustment to go. So hang up these things. Now we will, at this point, get back to needing the nut files, and I think you can probably see pretty well from there. Okay, so I'm starting again with this process. I've got my playing action. What I didn't check, by the way, I want to check now, is having brought the action up a little bit, I wanted to check and see just how many of these notes were cut off. A little dead. Ouch. So basically, this guitar will not play at the action I want. So that's why we're going to do what we're going to do. But first of all, while we're still of sane mind, we're going to do the action, the first fret. And once we've done that, we'll be ready to get stuck into the gruesome process of fret leveling, which is probably going to take a bit of work on this thing, but it's no doubt we're going to be able to do it. I might cut some fresh, get some fresh sandpaper, wet and dry. Okay, so we had an action of 0.1, which was way too low, and I'm going to aim for 0.3, which actually no, I'll go 0.25. I like 2.5. It's a really nice, safe, conservative action. There's plenty of room either side of it. Okay, so what I do is I'm going to drop these two off, and I'm going to work from the D outwards. I'm trying not to cut myself on this damn thing anymore. D outwards, and working to a 2.5, and hopefully now I'm going to be able to make some, round out these slots a bit as well. Now what I don't know is, I think these are 10s, but I wasn't entirely sure, so I want to just see if it tells me before I go any further. On 0 inches, 0. Okay. It says 11. It says 11. Okay. So it says 11 there. And 14 there, so that's a heavy gauge. Personally, I'd probably want 10s on it, so I'm going to need to still cut it for 11s, which means I have to get right out of sequence with these. So I take my top one out, and I'm going to have to go over on the bottom one. It's all very technical, which means a bit of fakery. Get the fattest one of these, which is equivalent to that string. So I'll start with my 46, but I'm going to reuse it. Okay. Let's get down to the right sort of height. And I'm not on the right one anyway. I'll come back to that one. I'm supposed to be on this one. Confused myself. So let's come back. Let's go. Quite hard to lift strings around. The reason I like to keep it under tension is I want to make absolutely sure that it pulls all the way down into the slot when I'm cutting it. If it gets caught part way down, you get a false reading and you keep on cutting and you end up cutting far too far down, and the string eventually sort of falls to the bottom of the, pushes its way to the bottom of the much deeper slot, and then you're hitting the first fret and you're having to get a new nut and start again. My only hope at this point is that these old strings will last long enough to do this process. There's no guarantee of that because they are so old and horrible. Okay, we're heading down. So although I'm cutting these strings for effectively close to a 13 set, the slots, sorry, I'll probably replace with a 10, and that means that the 10 is going to be in a slightly bigger slot, the 10 gauge set, than it was intended for. But it's not a problem because guitars routinely, or always, come with nuts that are cut for the biggest likely gauge that their customers are going to use. So there's always, you're very often in a slot that's slightly bigger than a gauge. I think it's a bit of a myth that it has to be exactly the same gauge, frankly. How do I tell? Right. Okay, so now I'm doing the A string. I'll just check it first. Yeah, there's a bit of a kind of conspiracy to get you to buy, I think, to get you to buy a gauge of files for every single possible gauge of strings, and it isn't necessary. I would pitch for the middle. I'd get a set of 10s or 11s, let's say, and stick with that. You say, well, what if a 9 string goes in an 11 slot? Well, if you ever put a 9 string in an 11 slot, it doesn't buzz. It's just a little bit more room. As it is, I have 2 sets. I have a 9 and a 10, and I wish I had a 10 and an 11 instead, because I'd never bother cutting a 9 slot for a 9 string. It's just too easy to end up binding and catching. I'd rather have a little bit more space. So you can see this is a boring but fairly predictable process of gently cutting down these until you get to the desired action, which in this case is 0.25 above the first fret, and it just is a matter of feel and experience and going quite slowly and keep on checking. And also check this way, because this is where if you've got the gauge totally wrong, this is where you could be cutting away with the string stuck halfway up the slot, and if you can't see it, get yourself some special glasses or a magnifying glass or something. Now this nut now is sticking out too far above the strings as well, but we can file that down later. Okay, so we're nearly there. I'm cutting at a slight angle backwards as well, which is what, there we go. Still playing. I might need to just go back in and do that D a little bit, tiny bit more. Okay, that's on. Let me just take this one off a minute and check that D again. The reason I spend so much time on this operation is that this makes the biggest single difference to the whole playing experience in my experience. Yeah, just pound for pound, taking these down to a low, easy. There we go, that's just on. A low, easy first fret action transforms how the guitar feels. Yeah, the biggest transformation you can make, pound for pound, as they say. Nothing quite like it. So it's well worth doing, and so it becomes easier to play down this end, and at the same time, sorry about that camera, at the same time it cures intonation problems that you get when the strings are too high off the nut, because what happens if they're too high off the nut, you're having to press them down a long way to hit the fret, and that forces you to bend them sharp, and they will, the notes you're fretting near the nut will bend sharp to varying degrees depending on how high the above the first fret they are, and how far from the nut they are. This thing is destined to stab me. Yeah, so they go sharp, and a couple of fretted notes in an open chord, which is where some of the notes are fretted, some of the strings are fretted down here, and then some of the strings are open. A mixture of fretted sharp notes and open true notes. That sounds horrible, and it makes people think they aren't able to get their guitars in tune, or they think their guitars won't play in tune. One of those two things, and ruins the playing experience. And I've seen it happen too many times for my liking, and it's what got me into this in the first place, because I had a guitar with that problem, and nobody would, okay, we're just on, nobody would tell me, well, nobody knew what was wrong or could advise me, and so I had to, at the point of throwing the guitar away, was when I finally worked it out, and ever since then I've been making that adjustment pretty much on all guitars I've got or had come through, and the difference is incredible each time, so it's unbelievably worth doing. Oh, this is really mucky. So yeah, this is the one thing you can do. Sorry, I'm going to move this around here so it doesn't bang against the wood. Yeah, the one biggest change you can make for the least, well, relatively little effort is this one. And once you've done it, you only have to do it the once. Of course, you have to be very careful, because if you overcut, then you're facing a repair or a replacement. But even then, I would say to you that for the amount of improvement this makes, it's absolutely more than worth doing, and having a spare nut standing by. Because if all it costs you to learn how to do it, if, you know, in exchange for the improvement it makes, if the only price was occasionally buying a new nut or having to do a super glue repair when you've cut too far, then it's worth every penny of it. And you know, if you're very careful, you don't have to do that. And it's, you know, have the first few times you do it, have a spare nut standing by, and just do it with confidence. So what, you get it wrong, just knock the nut off, experiment with shimming it, knock the nut off, experiment with repairing the slot with super glue, building it up and cutting it again, or just putting a new nut on. Relative peanuts. And you'll only do it a couple of times and you'll have learned, and then you'll be able to make this massive improvement to your guitar every time. And we're close to there, and I could do this alteration or this improvement on people's guitars, and they can't believe the difference. Just about on. Yeah, they can't believe the difference, and you know, if you put it to the test, they would tell you that something much more complex or expensive had been done. But it's not. It's this. But you can see it's not quick. But it takes time and a bit of experience and practice. Somebody asked a while back why. Well, somebody said that a luthier friend of theirs, when they did, stop rattling, would you? No, obviously not. When they did this, they did all the slots at slightly different, sorry, all the strings to a different action over the first fret. I suppose you could do if you want to experiment with that. I quite like the feel of them all being the same. Some people say, well, you know, the low strings need more space to vibrate, but here they don't. They're describing a very small circle down here. It's down in the middle of the guitar they need space to oscillate and move. But anyway, it seems to work quite well doing it this way. So as with a lot of things, when people share a different view or a different way, that's fine, and sometimes people get a bit aggressive and rude about it, and I always reply that, you know, if I'm getting good results doing it this way, or whatever way it is, the way I do it, if I'm getting good results and I'm getting rave reviews from happy customers, then forgive me for not altering it. I would be mad to alter it. It's funny when you do come across, sometimes you come across criticism from people who are, you know, very attached to the thing they think is a right piece of information, or the truth, and they can get really insistent that their truth is so right that you must be hearing them. You've got to hear them. You know, you are doing it wrong, and then you say to them, well, I appreciate you're passionate about the thing you believe in, but you know, read this feedback from people about the way I've done it for them. And the funny thing is, when you do put that in front of people, they still can't see past the certainty about what they think is right. And it's at that point it strikes me as being religious, or quasi-religious, because you know, they people who have a fixed or a certainty that they're right about something in a particular situation, they will not let even evidence dissuade them of that fact. So it's become quite annoying. Okay, as you can see, I'm just lining this up for, this hasn't got too far to go actually, because it was pretty low before we even shimmed it. So just going to now work down on this E a little bit, being careful. They say, well, somebody says, maybe the RAC or somebody says, most road accidents happen within a quarter or half a mile of home because people, their attention wanes when they think they're home and dry. They relax a bit, and it's when they kind of relax and unwind and think they're safe, and a bit of carelessness and complacency sets in. And so here we are, having kind of got everything done, and we're running up to the final slot. I'm going to get this right, but we don't want to mess it up. So kind of redouble your focus and care on this last one, so that we don't balls it all up. Okay, I'm done. Right, there is our nut slots cut to the desired height. I'm sorry about that, just push you out of the way rudely. And now the proof of the pudding is, if I were to pick this thing up now Now I should feel a nice even action. Which I do, spoiled only by the uneven frets, which is the next phase of this process. And I'm just looking at the timings and seeing whether I need to be doing the next part of the fretting. So I'm going to put this thing on hold, hang it up safely out of the way, and get ready to I'm encouraged by that. It's immediately better than it was, so I think we're on route to a nice guitar. And now I'm going to create a container for its parts, and we'll get on with the fretting the other half of the satellite SG neck. Okay, so I'll see you back for the fret leveling on the Rally Explorer shortly. I was just messing around there, getting nowhere, trying to put this thing on and forgetting that the key hold was on. Anyway, so we're back with the Epiphone, the Rally Explorer, and since we were last here, I've done a little repair there to the chip that was down to the wood. It's okay, it's built up with some black paint and some clear lacquer, but it's got a couple of little tiny white dots in it, which is sometimes what I get, but anyway, it's much better than it was, so I'm going to leave it like that. Next part in this, we are all ready, if you remember, for the fret leveling, which I'm kind of keen to get on and do because it needs it, and not only does it need it, but it also means we can get on and play. So here's our fret leveling tool and some little bits and pieces I'm going to use. So I think probably the way this is looking, as long as this plays well, this is going to be Ian's guitar. So Ian, if you're watching now in arrears, I'm trusting that I don't delete this video like I deleted the last lot. Let's see what we've got. So okay, this is set up. Yeah, it's got a nice little bit of relief. The action's really low. As a result, we've got loads of choking going on. Now, what I'm going to do is, before I start doing the leveling, I'm going to slack all these strings off if they'll survive it, just long enough, just so that I can mark up these frets. Now I'm doing this as a sort of alternative to doing some other work I've got to do. That's right, I will get on to that. Right, so I'm going to mark up the surface of the frets with this marker. It's a Sharpie, but it's actually, need to get myself a wider one. My last one ran out. These are quite low frets to begin with. They're not tall and high. Sorry, they're wide and high. They're sort of medium width and medium height. So all round medium. Anyway, so I'm confident that they'll level up nicely. But obviously, it's a game of preserving fret material and therefore fret life. We don't want to take off any more than we have to get it playing the way we want it. So we'll see how it goes. And it's one of those things you have to make dynamic decisions all the time. And if we find that we're down too low on the metal and we're not getting anywhere near level, then we're just literally going to have to rethink it all, and that might require even something as drastic as a refret. Because from where I stand, there's no point having a guitar like this and being forced to play it with a crappy high action. You know, you might as well not bother. Ooh, these strings are mucky. So the way I look at it is, if it has to have a refret to make it, you know, give it a lease of life and make it worth playing again, then it has to have it. See how dead those strings are. Okay, it's good enough. Right, so the game here is I'm going to start with mapping the curve of the neck using this tool. If you've seen this before, you'll know exactly what I'm doing. My truss rod is my leveling tool, and the beauty of that is that I can deform it to mimic or copy the curve of the neck. Oh God, steady on. And that means that I can, I'm just going to try and keep you out of the brightest of lights. Yeah, it means I can level these frets while the neck is curved, which is pretty cool. And that allows me to get slightly more accurate fret leveling. Okay, so I'm going to lay this on here, and I can see that I haven't got any curvature in that, in the truss rod, still not. Now I've run out of finger adjustment, and I need to then turn it with the Allen key. So, and that's good because this is a very stiff truss rod in that I can get the curve I want, but it isn't going to go anywhere once I've got it. It's not going to deform very easily or bend if I press down too much in the middle. It's still a little bit off. You can do it by feel, or if you really want to, you can crouch down if your knees don't ache, and then you can look for the gap. It's just about spot on. Okay, so I'm going to go with that. So what I do is I take off this top string, because I'm going to work the fret leveling right down this channel here, and I'm just going to use this thing to spread the strings out, and then using the gravity on its own, I'm just going to let this truss rod go up and down here in the track that I call the E track, and I'm just going to go for a little bit, and then I'm going to stop and review and see what I've got. And this is probably quite revealing. It'll give us an idea about what's going on in there. So I'm getting some cutting here, some cutting right there, and some cutting at this end. Now all those three things tell me that the curve that I've mapped here is correct. If it was only cutting at the ends, I may not be curved enough on my truss rod, and if it was only cutting in the middle or more in the middle than the ends, it might be that I was too straight, as it were. But it's doing it right, so I can see that I do have some uneven frets right here in the middle and right here at the top end, but the looks of it I need to carry on a bit, so I'm just going to keep on going with this, not really using too much downward force. The weight of the thing on its own plus the 400 grit paper does quite a good job on its own. Now the nice thing about doing the fret leveling with this tool, as I've said many a boring time, and I'm ever so sorry if you're watching this, one of those strange people who watches more than one of these videos, and I know there are some of you out there. The nice thing about this is I can now test this rather than do it visually, so I'm not aiming to scrape off all the black material. What I want is this these strings to play cleanly at the action that I've chosen, and if it does, then I can stop. God, it's a weird thing. Okay, that's still incredibly low, but I'll keep going because there is still some choking going on there. So I just flop that off, spread the strings out with the plastic again, and go back to it. But I mean, once again, I've chosen a very low action as a target, which I always like to do. I don't like to start by giving up on it. I think that, you know, we should be aiming for a really fast low action, a good accurate low action, I should say, and see if we can get there. Now if we can't, then we will back up a little bit. For whatever reason we can't get there, we'll go back up a little bit. But usually we get there. It's just a matter of time and doing it with gentle adjustment. But I can see that the high frets are quite high up here. There's one really high one that's getting in the way of everything, and that's quite often what you find. I don't know how well you can see this. Let's bring you closer. Oh, sorry. Yeah, neighbours are having a bonfire. Okay, so there you can see this is a really, I don't know if you can see, but there's a really flat one there. These are all taking a little bit off the top, but it's really significant there. Sorry, you have to put up with the weirdos. And that one there in the middle. So, you know, it's a characteristic pattern of something that's got a lot of unevenness, which is unusual. This is the first rally I've come across that has that, I have to say. So far, they've been really good. Straight out of the second-hand box, as it were. Nearly there. That's not too bad. I think we should persevere because this guitar is worth making play. You know, it's worth having a remarkable action. We didn't start out doing this to have an average action, so I'm gonna keep going. And this is a really amazingly simple but effective way of doing this. Some people still ask, you know, do I use, or some people don't ask, they tell me I should be using at some point in my process, why don't I use a slotted metal rule? And the reason I don't these days is because I don't ever do any levelling, or very rarely do any levelling with the neck flat. It's almost always curved now with the strings on. God, this weird guitar. That's right. I'm just now looking at this and make a decision because I think it's we've taken quite a lot off some frets and not the others, and I'm just going to have a quick look. Oh, it's inches, that won't help, will it? Oh, it's really low, that's sub 1 millimeter. So I'm going to do a little adjustment here, counterclockwise, half a turn, and let's see what we've got in height. Okay, we're just over 1 millimeter, and we've got getting there. Do a little tiny bit more on this one, and oh, sorry, my little adjuster's fallen off. Oh god. Right, yeah, we'll tiny bit more on here and then move on to the next thing. And what I do is recalibrate in between each track so that I'm mapping the curve of the actual neck rather than just assuming it stays the radius stays the same as we go across. Sorry, not the radius, the relief. I'm not going to assume that the relief stays the same as we go across the radius. You have to get your head around what that means, but I know what I mean by it. Okay, I'm going to call that quits and line up. Oh, I should have done something here. Line up on track 2. I'm just going to make a little mark with these, a little bit of masking tape when I find the center point of all of these. It just saves me trying to relocate it every time. Hello. It's the missus. I'm sharing my workshop video with some people having a barbecue. Before.
I just looked out into the field and the sun's glinting, the grass is luminous green, and
it's all good then. All good then.
And the cow was having a big pee, and the sun was shining off it.
Like the sun glinting off the cow's
It was
piece.
like a big arc.
Very lovely.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm now... Oh, look, there's a little... No, that's right. I'm now going to level... sorry, you can't see this. Level the B track. And I've readjusted the truss rod, so it's actually a little bit more curved in this track now than the previous one. But we've got some fairly uneven frets on here.
I'm going to drink my tea.
Okay. Saturday night.
Where's that?
Saturday night at Morrison's.
Because we're
Sort of boring things.
yeah.
Do you know what would be great? Do you want some money?
Huh?
Do you want some money? Okay, fine then. Could you get some more of that fizzy water and some lemony stuff to put in it?
£5.
Thank you.
Right. Well, I'll see you when you get back.
All right, love. See you in a bit. Get a room, says our stepson. Get a room. Okay, so that's still doing a little bit of buzzing, so I'm going to carry on a bit more in there. So right this moment in time, things are looking nice and busy for Reloved Guitars. At the moment, we've got Jack coming tomorrow, bringing 2 acoustics. Jack's a long-time customer. Hello, Jack, if you're watching this. Bought a Squire Telecaster from me quite some time. Well, it's not that long ago, but it feels like an age ago now. Bringing over some acoustics for me to set up for him. It'd be nice to see him again. And I've got Si's lovely old satellite to do there. Tiny bit more. And yes, I'm really pleased actually with the way that these Aristocats have been going. And I've got 3 of them here now, and the thing is, I've got to sell them, but I want to keep them because actually they're so nice. This one, I believe, I think Ian and another Ian may well really like this when this is done. There's a little bit more to do and stuff, but it's on its way, and it's already playing superbly. I haven't even done the precision leveling, so it had a first basic fret level, but you can see it's got some lovely dark moody tuners on it, locking tuners, and it's got some tone riders. The only downside about this one is that the bridge is about 1 millimeter off to one side, and it really just means a tiny movement, but it's really tricky to know whether to... It's quite a big deal to pull these things out and re-drill holes and put new ones in. It's possible. I'll only do that if it doesn't play well. That's the kind of by exception, I guess. Just don't do it if it doesn't need it. But yeah, I think it's great. I'm very, very happy to be doing a lot of the Reloved Aristocat things for people. I mean, I think if I'd have sort of sat down and thought up what did I most enjoy doing, and what would I like to be doing most of a year ago, I would have cautiously said taking old budget classics like the Columbuses and Satellites and Hondos and stuff like that, and making them into sort of retro chic, timeless classics, and you know, lo and behold, I still haven't bloody marked where my thing is, sorry. Lo and behold, that's what I'm doing, and I feel very lucky and privileged to be able to do that. I'm lucky too that I've been doing other things to earn, kind of pay the bills, money. So but it's a really nice foundation for reloved guitars, and the feedback I've been getting has been pretty damn nice. So I'm very happy with the way things have been going, and I've had a few really amazing emails and bits of feedback this week, which really make such a difference. I suppose, like many people, I can get hung up on the rare occasion when somebody turns up on your YouTube page and decides to have a go and be really abusive and rude, and then it can seem like the whole world, well, you can interpret it as the whole world thinks you should give up. And of course, countering that are so many really nice emails and posts and things that I get from people, almost all of who say, that guitar you set up for me, it's fantastic, or the other one is I followed your method, if you like, to the letter on my 5 or 6 guitars, and they're all playing beautifully, and you can't thank me enough for having shown them how to do it. And I think that's such a nice thing to get. I really appreciate that feedback. And I got a great email from Ian, who at first I didn't realise he actually bought the Rally. What's the thing called? It was HM something, but it was a kind of heavy metal style Rally with an F hole down here as in a kind of grey, flame maple-y grey veneer thing. And I knew Ian because he'd asked me a question about it, and then I thought somebody else bought it, and I thought a lady bought it, and of course I didn't realise until just the other day that it was Ian's girlfriend, I think, who bought it for him. And so Ian got in touch with me after having a very busy few months, just dropped me a line to say how much he's enjoyed the guitar and the setup on it, and said he has a friend who has a much more expensive guitar which is terribly set up by comparison, and was sort of saying how his friend had tried the Rally out and was just amazed. A little bit more, and so that's great to hear, and I really enjoy that kind of story. I mean, not because I enjoy somebody else's guitar being crap, but it does really confirm that sort of start point where I came to all this from. That there's just so many expensive quality guitars just shouldn't be being sold currently, but are, because the things that need doing are just so basic. And here I am doing some of them, but. So anyway, the really nice thing is that it turns out Ian wants this one, so I'm doing this for Ian. And the other nice thing is he said in the email that it was like I'd started a quiet revolution, and I really like that expression. Quiet revolution. It's not very rock and roll. Not very rock and roll, but it does sum up really well the thinking behind reloved guitars, and it's nice to remind me that this isn't just about doing this to make some just as look, it's something I can do to make some money. This came about because I'm that kind of person that I don't like the whole thing of feeling you have to join in the upgrade culture. You always have to get the latest thing. You always have to be kind of pushed to keep up to date, or even the idea in guitar world that you can only get a well-playing, well-set-up guitar if you spend tons of money, and I can buy the big name stuff, and I just don't go for that. So yeah, to be called, for Ian to say it's like a quiet revolution is fun. I like that, and it is important to me. You know, I just think people shouldn't be having to spend tons of money to get a guitar that plays well, and probably more to the point, it just isn't right that you should be paying £1,000 for a Gibson that's unplayable. Big Steve was just reporting on Facebook today that a friend of his has got can't remember which model, but a Gibson, 1,500 quid's worth, and it won't even stay in tune, and it's partly because it's got these G-Force tuners, or Tronic, I think it's G-Force on this one, but it's got these electronic tuners and they're malfunctioning, so the actual thing won't stay in tune. I mean, it's like that's the number one consideration in a guitar. If it doesn't stay in tune, then there's no point. It doesn't matter what it's made of. It doesn't matter if it's got Gibson on the logo, or Tysco or Satellite or anything. If it doesn't stay in tune, it is firewood, no matter how pretty it is. So for me, that I also realise that I really do believe that every guitar is fun. I mean, and that's what I was thinking about this the other day, because I, having done some work recently for a client, I decided that I was going to, maybe I should mark finishing the job with treating myself to a new guitar. And I rarely, if ever, buy new guitars, as you know. So I thought, well, why not? And then I started that weird process of thinking, well, what would I get? And straight away I kind of got a bit freaked out by it, a bit bored, thinking, as soon as I start thinking about spending loads of money on a guitar, I suddenly think to myself, well, I've got everything I need. Why do I need another guitar? I've got more than I can play already, and maybe they're all budget guitars, but some of them are just beautiful to play and sound great. So why would I want something else? And I had to sort of push myself to think, come on, Sam, you're allowed to treat yourself to something. So I thought more about it, and I started looking at Gibsons and bits and bobs, expensive things, and then I started to think, actually, maybe it's more like me if I just get something like, I don't know, even like a Greco or an Electra or something, really quality Japanese, or a Japanese, one of the earlier Tokais or something like that, and then just take time to really do it up, and because that's what I really love doing is making things better. And it doesn't feel quite like me to start off with a brand new double cut Gibson TV yellow thing that I was looking at. I'm not sure how I could particularly enjoy it any more than any of the ones I'm currently working on. So I started that process of thinking about treating myself, and then it kind of all went a bit funny, and I'm currently, right this second, I don't know if I will or won't. And it's a luxury, first world problem. But it's also nice to be in that kind of place in your life where I don't really have any cravings for any of these things. And I certainly don't come from the point of view where I think, anything I could buy will be either so much better than anything I've got, or that it will somehow make me into something because I've got one. So it's a nice position to be in, to be quite satisfied with what you've got. So the question is still open, really, as to what I still like the idea of treating myself to something to mark the occasion, but as to what it is, I've no idea. I thought for a minute about a Variax because I saw one being demoed and somebody else had said they loved them, and I saw a sort of Les Paul-y version, and actually it was really interesting seeing the different models, but then other people were saying no, they're terrible. Okay, we're almost there. And to be fair, I'm not that techno either, really. You know, I've got lots of different guitars. Why would I want one that mimics loads of different guitars? So who knows? Maybe I'll surprise myself and just go for something that I wouldn't have expected. I did like the look of the Gibson TV yellow double cut Les Paul thing. But would it satisfy me as much as that SG down there, or the size satellite Les Paul copy over there? Probably not. Or even this Explorer. By the time I've sorted out these frets and got them really lovely and level so that we can have a beautifully slick action. There was a time when I wanted a Brian May Red Special, but then I thought, actually, it's a guitar that you can't help but look silly with. No offence to anyone who's got one. It's just that when you think about it, there's only one reason for having one, and that's because you really like Brian May. If you like the Trisonics, the Burns Trisonic pickups, you'd probably just buy a Burns. But anyway, so it's a really nice luxury problem, and I'll think about it some more. I was kind of interested to try the G-Force tuners and also the adjustable brass nut that comes with that Gibson, because it'll be obvious to those of you who follow what I do that brass nut should solve this intonation problem that, well, that's a tuning issue, but the intonation problem that most guitars come with. Okay, we're getting there. Right, so we've got dirty fingers and it's time to take off the strings, and we're going to go for children playing football against the fence. We're going to go for the clean up the board, re-profile these frets, and then polish them out. And once we've done that, then we'll be kind of close to getting it all together. Now, while the strings are off, I do want to go off camera a bit and take a bit more time over having a look at this paintwork on here, because it is a little bit light scratched under there. Some of these two guitars I've just had recently where it looks like people have tried to clean them with Brillo pads, which is really annoying. But I'll have a look at this one off camera. I think this is I'm going to string this with 10s because that's what it's currently got on it. And this looks like it would benefit from it. Right. Okay, and I'm going to give all of this stuff a clean up too, because it's pretty filthy. And yeah, give the whole bodywork a going over. So I can take all this out because I know that having set the action for my nice low action, I don't have any problems. I can just reinstall these hardware bits and just dial in that low action again, and it will come back to where I want it. I'm going to just try and gently pull off these knobs, and while I'm at it, then I can clean right under there, and also allows me to check them for tightness. And I'm going to be trying out using a little bit of Loctite on these things and around the jack plug socket, because the pots and the socket are always where the things come undone, and that's where your electrical problems all start, where things are moving around, because it doesn't like movement, as you can imagine. Ouch. So I got more dead strings than I can know what to do with. Filthy fingers too. Right, just checking, is everything working all right? Yeah, I got everything working for a change. Alright, so hardware off to one side. Again, I'll give that a clean off with my stuff. What's that stuff, you know, naphtha. And I've got two different kinds actually. I've got this petroleum ether version, which is pretty good actually. And I've got a sort of Coleman fluid one, but I'm just going to use the petroleum ether one at the moment because I've got so much of it left. And it does the same thing, only it's a little bit faster evaporating. So just taking all the dust off here to begin with, giving it a little bit of a clean up. I'm buying a second hand set of Raleigh pickups off Alistair on my Real Love Guitars Facebook page. I'm not sure which guitar he got them out of, but so far I've been very impressed with Raleigh pickups, so having a set of those to put into an Aristocat like the K1 inside, which has the Raleigh pickups in it, makes a superb sounding, superb sounding old guitar quality pickups. Now this actually is a better quality jack plug. It's been partly thought out, or a bit better thought out. So at the moment I'm just doing a sort of quick surface clean. This the bodywork in this guitar is interesting too, and it has actually got underneath the clear lacquer layer there is somebody in the factory's fingerprint, which is probably makes it technically a factory second. So it isn't 100% perfect, but it will be playing perfectly by the time I've finished with it. So just getting, while I'm here, getting some of the lifelong gunk off the board, and it's very effective for cleaning finger goo off, but it does dry out the board very quickly, so it really benefits from some oil once we've done all the leveling and the reprofiling. I won't take you through the entire reprofiling process, or much of it even, or the polishing, because it goes on forever. So what I'll do is I'll just show you what I'm going to do and then disappear and do it. Just getting everything, an initial clean over. This version of naphtha, or the petroleum ether, because it evaporates so quickly, or it's got so much kind of an alcohol or petroleum base or whatever, it really freezes your fingers if you use it a lot, so you have to be careful. There go the cats. While I'm here, I'm going to take this very tacky made in China sign off. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it being made in China, but it just, this little gold sticker which doesn't really do much for the overall aesthetic. Okay, my cats have gone mad in the late afternoon sun. And they've gone up a tree now. There you go. So that stuff, whatever it is, works as a very good degreaser thing. You can see it's taken all the sticky stuff off from that made in China sticker. Okay, so that's some of the dust all taken off, and the rest of it looks pretty good. But as I say, I want to. It does play. I've checked the checked it for wiring, but while I'm here, I'm just going to take the back off so you can see the wiring arrangement. And it's the wrong screwdriver. Yeah, that's where the fingerprint is. It's been done on the paint layer, I think, and then gone through the production. Not a lot I can do with regard to these very fine scratches. You can't really see them in this light. It's sort of masked or hidden, but I will polish them out with some scratch remover, get as much of it tidied up as possible. Cat's on the roof now, nice one. Okay, so that's a nice tidy little setup in there. Nothing too surprising. I suppose not often that I see plug-in clips like this. Not seen them on a rally before, so who knows. But anyway, so I'm just going to make sure that these are done up tight. But yeah, all in order. A bit of shielding on the back here, which is, I don't know if this is shielding paint on the inside of this. I don't know if it really makes much difference, but it looks pretty. I mean, just looking at these things, they are solidly done up, and they've got washers on the outside, so I'm not going to mess with those. There's no reason to. And the jack input is a good quality one as well. So I'll go off camera and I will do two things. I will take care of some of the scratching if I can, do a bit of polishing, and then I'll come back and the guitar will be, well, the neck will be masked off with masking tape, ready for the re-crowning process. And that's where I'm going to take the flattened off frets and make them all nice and curved again so that they play nicely. Yeah, so it's all looking good. No surprises anywhere. It's all in order. Okay, save you me muttering away. Back in a minute. Why such pretty evening sunshine? You're probably getting a bit dazzled there. I'll try and help you out. Turn you around away from the bright sunshine. There you go. So, just putting the last bits of masking tape on the guitar. Slow process, but I can't think of much nicer things to be doing on a sunny spring evening in the countryside. Sound of the birds tweeting and the animals going crazy around the garden. So I've pre-cut all these bits of masking tape to make sure they fit. Done a bit of polishing on both sides. You can see there's loads of dust on it at the moment from the crappy dusty towel that I used. I don't have any dust-free rags, lint-free rags, which I need desperately, but anyway. So what I've got is little strips to protect the fingerboard from the next stages, which will be reprofiling or reshaping the frets and polishing them up to a playing finish. That gets a fairly dirty process, but with the guitar paint polish, scratch remover stuff, which I've got, which is really actually good. It's very expensive, but I really use it a lot for a sort of clean up polish on a guitar. Usually most guitars just take one clean up or one polish with this stuff, and you get two grades with your set. I tend to use all the they popped tube number 1 first and then end up with loads of tubes of number 2. No smutty puns there, but and actually that works pretty well anyway on its own, but they together as a sort of first and second step, they're very effective. So I just ordered some more because I've run out of the number 1 solution. Okay, so there's my kind of basic fingerboard protection, and then I like to then cover the pickups, because this stage gets a little bit on the dusty side, so we don't want too much of that going everywhere. And I tend to also just cover up these end bits here, because often it's very easy for the sandpaper to scuff across the top. So I don't want any of this paintwork finish lacquer getting scratched, especially not since I've just spent some time polishing it as best I can get it anyway. I was well annoyed with myself for having lost the video of the Chapman ML2 I did the other day. So if you're watching this, oh blimey, I've forgotten the name of the guy who brought the ML2. Senior moment, pass over. Yeah, so I can't believe I lost it. I sort of edited it, exported it, and then cleaned up in a fit of tidiness and put it straight in the bin, and emptied the bin completely, so it's gone. Anyway, I won't be doing the same with this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to redraw marker pen over the top of these frets again, and the reason for this is similar to the first time. It's just as a guide to show me what I'm doing with the next process, and the next process involves taking these slightly flattened frets and using a concave diamond file to run along the top of them and to reshape them into a nice smooth arch shape, which is how they need to be to play properly. I noticed somebody gave me a link to some site somewhere where I think it's some Gibsons that have really deliberately low flat frets that look like little strips of, I don't know, flattened wire or something, and apparently there's a sort of, some people swear by it. It's kind of difficult for me to get my head around, because everything I can tell about the shape of a fret is that if it's flat, then it won't. I suppose it'll play. It moves the intonation point of the fret. If these were flat, the front edge of the fret is the intonation point, if you like. So the scale length is from the front edge of whatever your flat fret looks like to the kind of fulcrum of the bridge. So if these frets, obviously the way they're put in, the center line is the point at which the string is supposed to sit. If they were really wide and flat, then the intonation point moves forward. But I presume if your whole neck is built with that in mind, then it is workable, but I can't see it somehow. Hence this process here, which is to take this flat spot, which has moved the front edge of the intonation point towards the bridge, and we're going to round that out so that actually the intonation point moves backwards to dead over the center of the fret. Anyway, some people like flattened frets, I don't. Anyway, so these are sort of medium jumbo, so they're midway somewhere. So I'm going to use the medium side of this file, and I just run it over the top of the fret, and it immediately starts shining up or cutting away the flat edges, or the edge of the flat spot. And as it cuts, the file I suppose, sinks a bit lower onto the fret and takes more of the shoulder away, and there's a gradually reducing strip of marker pen in the middle, and the aim of this is to stop doing this when you've rounded off the shoulders but left a thin strip of this pen down the middle. And it's very simple, that if you leave that thin strip of pen down the middle, it's your way of knowing that you haven't touched the top of the fret, and therefore you haven't reduced it. And if you leave all of your frets at this stage with a bit of this pen on top, then you know that you've left or retained the original levelling that we just spent a load of time doing. So it's a really simple marker or simple system of marking and knowing, checking the progress you're making, and basically that's all I have to do. The more uneven they were, the more work I have to do to level them out, because the more uneven, the more metal has been taken off and the flatter they are. There's some that if you come across ones that haven't been touched at all, then you just pretty much go once over and they're done. Big Steve, I'm still waiting on a client to pay me, and when I do, I will get that pick guard sorted out that you asked for, the strap pick guard with the rails cut out, or rails loaded I should say. Just need to hang on for a minute while my client takes its time to pay. So once I've done this, then the next major step is to go over all of the frets with various different grades of sandpaper and polish them out into plain condition. And when that's done, then we're ready to restring it and just tweak the action, because the bridge has obviously been off. We reset the action the way we want it. The relative levelness should reappear, because it will be under the same tension and pressure loading that it was when we levelled it, and we're ready to test it out and do the intonation, and that will be the whole deal. So as you can probably just about see, I'm coming very close to the end of this. Flat one up here, we're going to have to take quite a bit off. This was a troublesome fret. So as soon as you hit these, the ones that were really high, they require quite a bit of effort to round them off again. Yeah, so with a bit of luck, Ian, we could have this one ready for you. It was Nick. Nick came with the Chapman. Sorry, Nick. Named kind of went out of my brain for a minute, and it was the fourth Chapman I'd done, and actually it was probably set up a little bit better than the other three, although there were slightly different jobs to do on each of those. Okay, so that's the fret recrowning or reprofiling, and now it's just a matter of getting some different grades of sandpaper, some of which we have. I'll get some new stuff, sorry about the noise. So, what we got? 1200, 1200, 1200, 1500, 1200, 1500, 600. Right, my three chosen grades, followed by my set of micro mesh papers, or cloths, which are really, really handy. Followed by, that's it. I don't think I'll do an autosol. I'm wavering between doing it sometimes and not doing it. I can't actually spot the difference. By the time I finish with the 12,000 grit paper, I honestly can't tell the difference between when I autosol, do the Dremel clean with autosol, and when I don't. And if there isn't really that much of difference, then it's 20 minutes and a load of muck for no real benefit. So I can't see the point in that case. So I've got my 3 grades of paper, and I know that I take 4 of the 600, take all of those, 2 of the 12s, and 2 for another day, and then 2 of the, oh, it's the other way around, sorry. Got my grades mixed up, man. Where's my 600? Right, 4 of my 600s, 1500, 1500, 2 of my 15s, 2 of my 12s, and save these for another day. Right, and that is all it will take. But it takes, well, that's all it'll take. It's those papers, 4 times 600, 1 1200, 1 15. I've ordered some more actually midway. I've gone for some 800s and some 1000s because not so much of a problem on this business, but actually I'm kind of missing a grade in the lacquer polishing department. Anyway, so just a load of elbow grease now between now and the end. The point being is we know the tops of these frets are all still relatively level because we haven't touched them, pretty much haven't touched them with the reprofiling tool. So I need to polish them all up, but I need to do it so they all get an equal coverage, and also most importantly, I don't want to just get a flat block and scrape up and down, because otherwise that will just sort of flatten the tops out again. So I've shaped a point on the block, and I want to really go up and down and try and let the paper go up and over each fret so it sort of follows the shape, the arch shape. And I tend to, just because I don't know why, but I tend to do the first runs with my fingers, and as I'm doing it I'm kind of looking to take all the remaining marker pen off here, so it's going to get very noisy. I'll switch off. Next thing, I'll come back when it's time to string it. I'll have cleaned the other hardware components, the bridge and stuff. I'll give them a good sort of toothbrushing down with some stuff, and then we'll be ready to restring. Much more interesting than this bit. And away we go. Look, mucky, right? It's all filthy and horrible. So I'm just going to peel off the paper, which hopefully is the low tack variety, but it often leaves a bit of glue on there anyway. And you're at the mercy of what the market man tells you. If he says it's low tack and it isn't, not a lot you can do about it other than clean it up afterwards, which is a bit of a pain, but not too hard to do. So it's still quite dusty, as you can probably see, and we need to clean all that off. Yeah, it's stickier than I would like, this stuff, so I may have been sold a bit of a fast one. It's just impossible to know. There's even I've bought low tack stuff before online and it's turned out to be stickier than ordinary stuff, so it's one of those things that just people never really expect anyone to complain or send it back or anything, so they can just put whatever they want into the pack and send it. So it is a bit annoying. This is proving harder or more painstaking to get off than it usually does. So just while I'm here, we'll get some more naphtha on here and we'll just get this glue off the front. Somebody coming through the gate. Kids. we'll get there. Just flip this over, and time to take off the stuff this way. Okay, so next stage in this is we'll peel all this off, and then, or now next, is before we put the strings on, is a good stage to give the board a bit of an oil, because the naphtha stuff we've used, or the Coleman cooking fluid stuff, dries out, takes the oil out of off the fingerboard. So putting some back on to darken it down before we put the strings on, and it probably needs a couple of sets of oilings in the next couple of string changes as well. But once it's got its own sort of natural oils back, it doesn't need it much at all. This is really annoying. This is definitely ultra sticky. I just ought to throw it away, reject, because it's just made my life much more difficult than it needs to be, and much more boring for you, the viewer. You can, somebody pointed out, you can take ordinary masking tape and make it low tack by just dabbing it on something furry, and that takes the stick out of it. But I thought I was using the real McCoy. Unfortunately, I'm using the real sticky McCoy, which is just a pain in the backside, slowed this down far more than it needs to be. It's really annoying. Yeah. Defeated the whole point of my little tabs, quick release tabs. Right, nearly there. Maybe nearly there. I can roll it off eventually, but oh yeah, there goes Morris up a pole. You've got to see this. What do you say, Lord Morris? What do you have to say to yourself, you handsome beast, you? Sister gonna come racing up the tree after you. Morris. I don't know how he's gonna get down. Sure he won't. Oh, there he goes. Oh, that was easy. That's not how we got up there anyway. He went straight up the pole. Anyway, that was just a little escape from having to do the fiddly bit here that's annoying me. Sorry, will I plug this back in? Look. Power on. Right, nearly there. This is just useless stuff. I think what's happened is that the guy in the market has got his specifications mixed up, or his suppliers stiffed him. Anyway, so we're going to have to get rid of all of this stuff. It comes off very easily, which is great, but it's just a pain that I prefer not to be doing this again and again. It'd be nice if it was just finished. Hi love. I just filmed Morris at the top of his perch. He went up the hammock pole.
Yes, just been chasing Sid. It was pretty intense.
Okie dokie. Yeah. Just going to put the hardware on and string this and up there. Thank you. Still got some stuck to the board here. Right, That's going to be, once I get this done, that'll be me done for guitars for today. I'll go and do other work. So it's just trying to get the dust out of the middle section. Where oh where has the top gone? I just sort of wobble around on the floor. Well, that's not going to find it, am I? It's not there. It's not even visible there, so wherever it's gone, it's proper gone. That's no good. Sorry about this. I should turn the thing off. Hold on. Found it. Right, oil time. Oil and then hardware. Take off most of it. Or the excess, I should say. Okay, right. It's a bit I've been looking forward to. Redoing the restringing and putting the hardware on. So first of all, volume, tone, volume, tone, right, stop bar, now the bridge, it's one of those things, I can tell you it doesn't matter which way round the bridge goes. So I've seen all the so-called experts do it both ways, and I've done it both ways, and I've had guitars brand new come, with them on both ways, different ways. So frankly, it doesn't matter a damn, and I prefer to have the screws pointing backwards, and the reason why is I prefer the access that way. It's easier to get to adjust the intonation. It doesn't make any difference at all. And if you find anyone who says it does, you know you'll be into the land of dogma, right? People who believe things that have learned or been told once and will not change their point of view for love or money. If you find yourself up against someone like that, run a mile, because you'll just be in for a long, boring argument for no good reason. Okay, so my stringing method I like to use is push it on all the way through into the slot, pull it back, best part of the whole fret, hold on to it, start doing it up, hold the held one over the top of the loose one first time round, second time round pull the loose one up and send the held one underneath, and that's that. And we just clip it right there and then put it over out the way. Now straight away I can just double check my action. I have to do a lot more moving of the camera with this narrow angle thing, which is a bit annoying. So that's that needs to come out a bit more, and I can just roughly set it now. It's 1.5 right there, and I guess I want the other side to roughly correspond, but meanwhile just pile on all the strings. I'll leave the truss rod cover uncovered right now because I may need to make an adjustment, so that won't be over till it's all done. And that'll probably be the last thing I put on, or in the case of Tom's guitar a couple of weeks ago, it'll be the last thing I forget to put on. I had to go and deliver him the truss rod cover on a separate day. It was okay because he's a local guy. Okay, got a good feeling about this. Are enjoying the joys of springtime. More and more I'm opting for or trying to use more and more locking tuners, the ones that lock from underneath. And not because they're flashy or anything particularly, not because of how they look, but actually because they hold the smallest amount of coiled string. It's the only thing that holds less coiled string is probably a Steinberger, which is the headless guitar and doesn't hold any at the tuner end or at the headstock end, because there isn't a headstock. So second best is the locking tuner, because it just goes through, grabs the string, and that's it. So there's nothing wound around. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow you to take the strings off and on, in my experience, because once it's gone through the locking tuner, then it's crimped the string, and you'll never use it again because it'll break. So it's doesn't actually even work as sacrificial strings for me, which is a bit of a pain. But as a staying in tune factor, it's probably very, very good. Okay. So these are very generic-y sealed rally tuners, nothing spectacular about them, but on all the other rallies I've had they work perfectly well. Okay, we're our last string to go on. Then I'll double check the action, and then I will do some string stretching, which is the next critical thing on our list. And I've learned over the years that this thing, probably the time that you dedicate to stretching the strings now at this stage, or just when you put them on, actually dictates how well your guitar will stay in tune for the rest of the time you've got the strings on. That could be 6 months or 6 weeks, but it will totally dictate the quality of the playing experience. Okay, so I'm going to go and grab something to eat, hang this up for a minute. Oops, got to chop that off, but hey, there you go. So it's looking nice. I'm going to come back and do some stretching afterwards, and then we'll be ready to test it out. So the secret of getting the guitar to stay in tune comes from a number of things. Firstly, it's from making sure the nut slots are cut correctly and are wide enough, and they can be a little bit, wider than the guitar, than the gauge of the strings. And nuts on new guitars always are, or usually are, much wider than the gauge of strings. But that string has to be able to go in and out of that nut without binding. If it's too tight, it'll bind without you even knowing it, and it will cause you tuning problems. If it's a bit too loose, you probably won't even notice it until it's really, really loose. And it has to be very, very loose for it to start buzzing. So the second most important thing is to get all of the slack out of the strings. and that requires, I would suggest, 3 or 4 goes of doing this. Alright, so you notice the string's really slack at the moment, and I'm going, I don't know if you can see, but I'm going up and down the entire length of the string, stretching them and trying to get rid of all of the loose or stored up stretch, natural stretch in the new strings. And I'm not kidding you, don't skimp on this, you know. I'd say do it 3 or even 4 times. If you do it 3 or 4 times, certainly if you do it 4 times plus some big bends and some pulls and stuff, you'll just be able to play the thing straight off and it will stay in tune. If you don't, if you just sort of pull it a couple of times and tune up and off you go, you will not only be out of tune straight away, but you'll also keep going out of tune for an amazing amount of time. It can be months. In fact, this guitar, when I got it the other day, I still had, even though the strings were, you heard them earlier on, completely dead, it still had unreleased stretch. So the strings were completely unusable and they still had stretch in them because I could just pull them and they were going out of tune. So we don't need that. Okay, so I'm going to give it another go, and the other thing I'm going to do after I've done this twice already before I put the camera on, by the way, but the other thing I'm going to do is after I've just stretched this, I'm going to slacken the strings off and put some graphite powder into the slot, because I want them to lubricate the string as much as possible. I mean, they're some of the nuts you can buy, Tusk stuff, claim to be self-lubricating. And that might be true, but it still won't make much difference if the slots are too small. But and most of them come as default too big or bigger than the gauge strings you'd probably be using. And you have to be careful at this stage not to break the strings. That's the only downside of stretching things. Sorry, a bit loud. So if we were to do it again, what you'll hear is it will detune again, and you can see I'm putting a lot of force into it, so I'm really trying to get rid of this stretch, and even though I'm doing it this hard, you still see that it will still detune slightly. So imagine how subtly and slowly and progressively these strings will continue to detune if you're just playing it. Even if I can't get it all out just by manhandling it like this, you can guarantee that slack is going to keep on coming out for weeks and months. Every time you bend a string, a little bit more will come out and you'll be out of tune. So this activity now is probably one of the most significant things you can do to change how your guitar plays in one go. Almost there. you want to keep doing that while you've got it here and you've just restrung it. You want to keep doing that until there is no more give in those strings. I'm pretty near the end now, but a few bends up like this, followed by some string bends, will probably, that's about 4 pulls with both hands, some upward pulls like this, and then some string bending. And by the time I've done all that, hopefully we'll have got most of the feels pretty damn. Oh god, that's right, it sounded worse than it was. Sounds pretty amazing. Or plays pretty amazing, I should say. Right, last little thing here. And drop these strings off, although it frightens the hell out of me to do it because they go down so far. These strange shaped headstock. So I'm going to get a bit of the old graphite. Try and get it into the slots. Very badly done. Blow away the excess. It's weird, this headstock, when the strings, there's so much there's no string trees or anything, so it's all this length of string ready to set up synthetic vibrations and God knows what. Right. So slacking it off and doing it up again will, oh well, that's the price you pay for slacking it off and doing it up again, and that's a cost of 1 string. That means most of a waste of a set of strings. It is the price you pay. I hate slacking things off once you put them under tension. That was my fault. I should have put the graphite on first. There we go. Yeah, pays the price. That's not possible. I can't have caught the string into the workmate. Yeah, well, that's what you get occasionally. It also depends on how sharp this bridge is down here. Okay. Ah well. Such is life. Got more leftover strings which aren't a top E. I really have to get some spare extra top E's, that's for sure. Otherwise I will have loads of extra sets doing sod all. So, back. God, that is sharp. Right, so I'm back to square one with this string. Stretch it as much as I can without breaking it again. It's the price you pay. If you stretch strings, you sometimes break them. Right, so next part of the game is to do the intonation. We'll have a listen how this sounds, double check the relief just to make sure it's what we need. One more time. Okay. Right, let's put it on a strap. So, the big moment has arrived. God. Stand clear. It's a peculiar big beast, I can tell you. Not familiar shape for me to play, but it's also I've got this hanging way lower than I probably normally would, but okay. I'm just going to try and forget that string and not be annoyed by it. Shut up. So the intonation bit will be a matter of setting the length of each string so it's the perfect length to fit this neck. That's what we'll be aiming to do. Ooh. Let's get this plectrum out of the way. Clean tone. So one tone, two volumes. It's a funny combination, or funny way of working it. That is probably a fraction too low by the sound of it. Time to just do a tweak wherever the screwdriver is. There we go. 1/4 millimeter. Under 1 millimeter. Let's not be over the top about this. So that's actually running at 2, so that's a bit higher than I'd want. So I'll dial that in a bit. That's not quite 1.5. Back out. Okay, 1.5. 1. See what we play like now. blend the two together in the mid position. Just do some quick bends. Okay, so it's not happy with 1mm. There is relief there. That should be enough, judging by that. Yeah. Honestly, I can't seem to be able to hold anything. Sticky masking tape, go. so everything plays, which is good. Not the best amp to try things out on, but anyway. Let me try cranking these around a bit. They're quite low. Won't be long. Let's get this raised up a bit and then we'll do the intonation really quickly. What I'm going to do, can't move anywhere with this thing on. What I'm going to do is unplug that a minute and do this without noise. So it's a case of using a tuner. Oh, sorry. Oh, God, I've left my phone right there, blurping away. Oh, not with it. Apologies. Right, we have our tuner on. There it is. You should be able to see it registering. Okay, so the point about all of this is I'm going to use the tuner to determine the length of the string. So in this case, length equals pitch. So if the string is the correct length for this neck, then what will happen is the pinged harmonic, the 12th fret, will be the same as the fretted note. Which it is. Oh, I'm looking for the... Good. Slightly fractionally flat. So that means we need the thing to be shorter. We need the bloody flat-headed screwdriver. We need the string to be slightly shorter, because at the moment the string's a fraction too long, which means we have to push the bridge towards the nut. And in this case, it is a counterclockwise movement we would do. What are we checking on? G. Counterclockwise on the G. I said it was easy to reach. The thing about a tunematic bridge is it's never easy to reach, no matter which way you're attacking it from. It's liable to break it from this end. I'm trying the wrong frets. What is wrong with me? I'll use a slightly longer screwdriver. Tunematic bridge inventor quite seriously should have been taken out and shot at some point in his life. It's the worst system I've ever used. Again, slightly flat on the D. It's like designed not to work. Still slightly flat, needs to shorten it, counterclockwise. Did I ever tell you how much I hate tunematic bridges? slightly flat as well, same counterclockwise, and I'll do it with both of these last two because I think they'll be the same. If I can even get the screwdriver in there. Doesn't want to push the saddle at all. It sort of goes around and then it bites and gets a bit stuck and wants to strip the head of the screw because it's like that. Hurrah! Tiny bit more counterclockwise, both of those. Okay, we are done, and I'm bashing it again. There we are. That's all I'm going to do in terms of tweaking it. A bit more cleaning up of masking tape around the place and a general dustify. But there we go. That's the Rally Explorer set up, playing beautifully well. Nice low action, 1.5mm on the low E and a fraction over 1, barely over 1 on the top E. And all the notes play as they should. I didn't have any James Hetfield riffs because I don't know any and I didn't have any time to learn any, so forgive me. But there we have it. Explorer Rally, ready to go. The weirdest shaped thing I think I've ever strapped on. Really needs to be played a bit louder during the day. to hear it. Yeah, if you like this sort of thing, it's a great big weird posing guitar, and you've got to be a bit of a guitar hero, I think, to play this, which I'm not. As you can tell, no lead riffs or anything. Okay, so thank you for sticking it out for this Rally Explorer. Ian, if it's coming up to you, I hope you enjoy it. Everything in good order. A couple of little dings covered up and polished along the way, but pretty much that's it. All in good shape. And yeah, nice level frets now. Okay, thanks for watching. See you again soon.